Hi, my name's Phil Williams. Welcome to this web lesson. What we'll look at today is a bit of left and right hand technique, just to try and improve basically what you're doing technique-wise with your left hand. Maybe you've built up some bad habits not using certain fingers on this hand. Also, good picking technique and muting with your right hand also makes for a much better sound on the bass. Basic pointers that I'll give you are things that you probably end up doing after a few years of playing anyway, but this gives you a nice little shortcut into that section, so you can kind of get these bits together without having to spend 2 years just getting your technique up to scratch. Really basic stuff to start with. What we're looking at is an exercise I've used called a finger per fret. Now this is really simple to do. These are all motor exercise skills. They're not particularly musical, they're just teaching your hands to do the things you need to do. So my advice to you is to play this stuff without the bass plugged in, really, if you can. It's always nice to have a bass by the sofa or something near the TV. You can sit down and watch some TV and do these exercises, which is what I did. And it's just building up the strength in your fingers. So for the left hand, really simple one to start with. It's just called a finger per fret. You'll have this one in a flash. Then all the way back down again. Okay, a few things to point out in this little exercise, because it's very easy to do. The bits I need to point out to you is, the first thing, it doesn't need to be fast. What I want you to do is to hit every note right behind the fret. The second note, second finger, my fingers are hitting right behind the fret. Right behind the fret. And this one as well, the little fingers, I don't want it here, I want it to be right behind the fret. That's where it sounds good. So it means really accurate placement of your fingers when you're playing these exercises. We go on to the right hand in a minute. Once you've played that, you move it up a fret, play the same thing. Again, speed isn't important. Accuracy is important. Okay, you can keep going up. There is no point really where you want to stop, probably where it gets uncomfortable around about here. So you're just going to go up and down those. Starts to build up the strength in this hand. Again, not important to have the bass plugged in for this one. Next exercise is based around the same finger per fret thing, but what we're doing here is we're going across the strings and from side to side. So I'll show you what I mean. It's this. Okay, exactly the same rules apply to this one. It's not a speed thing initially, it's getting your fingers placed right behind the frets. Now this feels a bit awkward with your hand here, and it sorts out the weak fingers, especially when you're coming back this way. That finger is normally always quite a weak finger, and your little finger as well. And you want to make sure that your thumb is well placed behind the actual fret, behind the bass. So if I show you what I mean, a good exercise, I don't know if you can see this, is if I turn the bass round, my thumb, my hand is kind of gripping the neck in this format, yeah? When I turn the bass back round again, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm going to get it as comfortable as I can. So at this point, then my thumb is in the right place. This exercise is virtually impossible to play with your thumb round here. It just, you know, it's still, your thumb steals from the rest of your hand. So keep your thumb well back. And also try and remember as well, when you're playing these exercises, it doesn't take much to push a string down onto the fret. It doesn't take a lot of strength. If you're really pushing hard, it makes these exercises difficult. So you need to find the right amount of pressure to push the string down and relax on it a bit. Shift it up a fret. And remember, accuracy and not speed. And you're getting up to around about here. So what you're looking at is just getting this exercise dead accurate and making sure that all your fingers land right behind the frets. Again, this builds up the strength in this hand. On your right hand, which I'll look at in a minute, it also gives you an opportunity. A tendency sometimes when you're starting is to play a note, fret the next string and miss playing that note, play the one underneath it. So it's kind of teaching your hand the distance between the strings and which notes are being fretted across the neck. Coming back against yourself is a lot easier because you're just dragging your right hand down. Okay, but we'll look at the right hand technique in a minute. Another exercise. So that one, again, in front of the TV, doesn't need to have the bass plugged in. Sit and watch a film, just play some of these exercises, loosen up your hands. Next exercise is based on the finger per fret. All I'm doing is alternating fingers, and what I call this is 1, 3, 2, 4. So I'm starting with 1, finger 3, finger 2, and finger 4. So we get this. Once again, really easy. It's all about accuracy and clarity of notes. And on the way back down, it's just backwards. 4, 2, 3, 1. Once you've played that, just shift it up a fret. Whoops. And so on. And move it up the neck. Again, non-musical exercise, something you can do while you're watching TV. There is a train of thought that if you are playing exercises, in a way they should be musical ones, or ones that make sense in a musical format. And why do something that isn't musical when you can train your ears to play stuff that's musical and get around some of these scales? My thoughts on this is that there can be some downtime on the bass where you don't do stuff, you just sit on the sofa and you watch TV. And that, for me, makes more sense. So you can actually do something and get something constructively out of the bass when you're not really tuned into it so much. It's just getting these skills together. Okay, here's a more musical exercise anyway. This one opens your hand out a little bit. And it's just basically built around ninths. All I'm playing is, we got a root, so we're in C, and then I've got a fifth, and then I've got a ninth. And this is this shape. If you can just memorize this shape, yeah? And we shift it up to the 12th fret, and play the same thing. Root, fifth, ninth, in A. And what I'd like you to do is this. So what we got there is just, we're playing root, fifth, ninth, moving it down 2 frets, moving it down 2 frets, down 2 frets. One of the things about this exercise, the reason I like it is because you can't cheat with this exercise, because to play the root, fifth, ninth, really you've got to play use these fingers. If you use anything else, it becomes awkward. And also you need to have decent thumb placement on the back of the neck. You can't cheat with this one because it steals from you and you can't reach the ninth. So you need to have your thumb nicely at the back of the neck. And you have to find a good position for your body as well. Your arm needs to come out at a decent angle. If you're all kind of leaning back wrong or you're hunched over the bass, these exercises are very difficult to play. So you kind of find the right position for you to sit in so you can play these cleanly. And also ninths are a nice introduction to a nice sounding set of intervals. So all I would suggest you do with this one is exactly as I'm playing here. Down 2 frets, down 2 frets. And back up if you want. These chords sound great if they're held on. If you can get this, it means you're stretching this hand far enough. These ones get really tricky to play. Okay, So that's basically some stuff to really loosen up this hand and also to get you a bit of good technique on this hand. What I'd also suggest is when you actually plug your bass in is to learn some scales. Obviously, some of you may have done this already, some of you may not. I mean, the most basic scale is the C major scale. Now, hopefully, most of you guys know this, but if you don't, let me just show you it quickly. We're starting in C, and it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and then back down again. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. And that's 3rd fret on your A string, 5th fret on your A string, 2nd fret on your D string, 3rd fret on your D string, 5th fret on your D string, 2nd fret on your G string, 4th fret on your G string, and 5th fret on your G string. Now the reason I show you this, sorry for those who already know this, the reason I show you this is there's a couple of very nice little exercises in here that give you a bit of basic theory as well. And one of these exercises is the arpeggio, major and minor arpeggio. Now what ideally I'd like you to do is learn this shape. If you don't learn your scales, then just learn this shape. Because you can impose it anywhere on the neck and play a major scale. So effectively you can play a major scale in virtually every key. And the exercises that are useful from this point of view is if I just take the C scale and give it each note a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? And then I play 1, 3, 5, and 8. And that basically gives me my major arpeggio. So if you impose any key you decide to play, say A flat, same shape, and I take 1, 3, 5, 8. I've got my major arpeggio. So really simple thing that is a nice musical exercise. So with any major scale, 1, 3, 5, 8 gives you your major, and you flatten the 3rd and it gives you your minor. 1, flattened 3rd, 5, 8 gives you the minor. So then we got a major arpeggio and a minor arpeggio. Major, minor. Now, this is quite a long stretch to play this minor. So what I tend to do is move this note, which is an E flat, to here, and we get the minor arpeggio like this. Kind of falls under the fingers. You choose any key again. Here's G. There's the major arpeggio, minor arpeggio. And you can take them over 2 octaves if you want, major. And minor. So all of this scope then becomes quite musical and very easy to remember. 1, 3, 5, 8, major, 1 flattened 3rd, 5, 8, minor. And then you can double the octaves and play arpeggios over the 2 octaves, working from the bottom string. And there's loads of scope to just mess around and experiment in your own. So first set of exercises, motor skills, these major scales, a little bit more kind of musical, and some of these exercises are a lot more musical, that you really need to have the bass plugged in for the last one. Right hand technique. Now this is the sound of the instrument. The bass, the way the bass sounds is all in your right hand, this hand here. This is the voice of the instrument. So you need to get good right hand technique. And the reason is because if you've got bad muting, if you're playing stuff and you've got other strings ringing on underneath, it makes for unclean sound, just an unclean sound. When you get into the studio, these kind of ringing strings just make it sound rubbish. So you need to have a very good muting technique. Obviously, this hand will help with the muting to a degree, but if you're fretting, sometimes you can't mute with this hand. And if you've got things ringing underneath, it just doesn't sound nice. So this is where your right hand technique comes in. First exercise, really simple, really important. I still do this exercise all the time myself. This is it. So that's over the back pickup, same thing whether if you've just got a front pickup. Now, again, in principle, looks pretty straightforward, but what's happening here is I'm starting from the top string, 2 notes, muting with this hand, next one, muting with that hand, and then as I hit the E string, I've moved off onto the pickup, so we get that. And then, on the way back up again, as I play the E string, I lift my thumb up and I mute onto the E string with my thumb. That makes sense? Okay, and this is another one to practice in front of the TV. It's a non-musical exercise, it's just building up motor skills. The other side of things that I wanted to talk about was, there's this thing called the rest stroke. I call it the rest stroke. I think I read it in a book somewhere, and I think that's what it's called. Now, what the rest stroke is where you play one string, let's take your G string, top string, and you pull down with your finger and make this note ring, like that. But where your finger comes to rest is the really important factor. And that is that it comes to rest on the string underneath. Now, if you're playing bass for a long time, when you first start playing bass, maybe you'll have bad technique with this hand and you'll kind of play the strings a bit like a guitar, or basically this approach gives you a very strong note. So that's something I want, have a look at your playing and see whether or not you're doing this. You're coming to rest on the string underneath, because that basically gives you a good strong note, and also you're muting the note you come to rest on underneath. So remember that, the rest stroke. Good muting makes a great bass sound. Also, all these exercises, apart from loosening you up, they give you the agility you need to play a lot of modern riffs and pop songs that you may have had a bit of a problem with playing before, because you're compensating for certain fingers that aren't strong enough. This stuff builds up the strength. Major scales, major and minor, just knowing the difference between those two when a guitarist plays a chord is a really useful function. If you know all this stuff already, then great. I base most of my theory knowledge on the major scale, which I've found very useful for bass, because in most modern music, the bass covers the root. If you have too much knowledge, it's not a bad thing, but sometimes stealing away from the root in modern music isn't always a good thing. So having a good basic bottom end knowledge of major scales, minor scales, bit of scale work, basically, is very, very useful. So hopefully all this stuff will really help you. Simple and very effective. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. All right, see you on the next one.